In this video, I want to speak to the current relationship between Saturn and Jupiter. The relationship between Saturn and Jupiter in general is a useful one to think about, both in transits and in our natal chart. So what I'm going to do is first define and speak to the relationship between these two planetary functions, speak about where they each are now, and define the particular relationship, which is the crescent phase semi-square, 45-degree aspect. So Saturn-Jupiter relationship speaks to the relationship between expansion and limitation. Jupiter is how we're always expanding our reality, realizing greater potential in all areas of our life. There's always more to see. The truth is always to be realized even more. There's always greater vantage point of realization just beyond where we currently are. So it's all about expansion and growth and realization, and there's always more. So it's inherently optimistic and growth oriented. Saturn is about limitations and boundaries. Now, Saturn in its essence says, what are we doing with our life? How are we structuring our life with respect to where we want to go? Whatever we value, whatever we consider to be important for our existence, and on a very basic level, we have a body. We all exist in a certain society or culture. We have responsibilities, and we all have certain dreams or desires that we want to fulfill. Saturn says, what are we doing to create a ground for all of this to function in a good way? So that in 10 years, in 20 years, we are where we want to be, that we're doing our evolutionary work, we're fulfilled on a basic level versus always struggling with it. So there's a quality of embracing limitations, discipline, parameters, making choices that will condition ourselves in particular ways. Now, when we apply the archetype of expansion and the archetype of limitation, and we understand their inherent interconnection, really we're saying, how are we creating structures and limitations in our life that will nurture a deeper integration to make livable and workable and real the realizations that we're having? We can go on a retreat and a spiritual experience or meditation or, all kinds of experiences and be inspired, have an insight. But then Saturn says it's an insight is different. An epiphany is different than living it. This is kind of like the difference between like a religious philosophy and then a religion. Just to use this as an example, a philosophy is an idea, it's a perspective on reality. And then the religion, let's say in most people in this world, will give you rules and ethics and limitations and to-dos and not to-dos and things like that. In all of our life, we can understand that inherent relationship because we all have a Jupiter function. We all have a natural orientation to expand our reality and to see more and to grow. And we all have a calling to come back home and define the parameters of our life in a way that's workable. How am I going to make these realizations real? How am I going to integrate it into my bones? All right, so I don't have to sustain it. I can nurture it and build it and condition it. Saturn's conditioning. Anything you repeat over time. So it stands on its own. So it's always really meaningful, any planetary relationship. And this is something that I teach before we look at aspects, right? Like your Jupiter is, sextile to Uranus. We can just learn so much looking at the transits, looking at our natal charts, just in contemplating the inherent essential relationship between planetary functions, meaning all of these planets exist within a holistic oneness, within an organism of what we are, right? They're all within us and they all exist now, and they all are a part of this greater ecosystem of our being, our beingness. And so we don't need to get heady about the particulars and the particular geometric relationship just yet. Just looking at, where's my Jupiter? Where's my Saturn? Where's Jupiter right now? Where's Saturn right now? Meditating on those archetypes, we can really gain a lot of insight. And so again, we can do that with all planets. And it's a really wonderful and intuitive, more direct way of learning and grasping astrology. So let's look at the current transits, and we'll look at the current position of these planets and delve into the meaning of this semi-square. I want to say too that the semi-square, to me, is actually a very powerful aspect, and it's one that often goes unaddressed or unspoken to because it's harder to notice visually. 45 degrees is harder to identify than a square or a trine. So here we have Saturn in Pisces, and Jupiter in Aries. This is a day ago. At this point, we've had the new moon in Aries already. We're past the equinox. Let's speak to the essence briefly of Saturn in Pisces, Jupiter in Aries, and then bring in the semi-square. Saturn in Pisces speaks to conditioning our reality with respect to truth, meaning. And it really emphasizes the duality between meaninglessness and meaningful. So Saturn in Pisces can speak to where we feel the weightiness, the heaviness of circumstantial realities like time and space, form, responsibilities, money, the body, aging, almost like it has a control over us. We're limited and defined by these physical structures and parameters of our earthly experience. And this is where the depression can really come in here, where we feel like there's no meaning or there's emptiness or what's the point? Why am I doing these things? And it can either be a dutiful, just doing everything, but feeling an emptiness and meaninglessness, which can be a very devastating and existentially empty experience, or it can be lacking all kinds of definition in the first place. My core dynamic with Saturn and Pisces is not defining one's life. Like either it's, all one, all unity, or I don't know how to differentiate. I don't have any boundaries. I don't know how to make boundaries. So what happens when we're not defining, when we're not embracing conscious limitations, we become susceptible to wherever the waves take us. That's very different than surrender, which I'll speak about in a moment. This is a lack of alignment, a lack of strength, a lack of presence, and we'll just go wherever we go. And what happens is we're always being conditioned, right? Whatever is repeated results in conditioning. So it's very easy with Saturn and Pisces to find ourselves in addictions and escapist behaviors, in all kinds of ruts or cycles where it's like, wow, my life looks this way, and I don't even know how I got here, right? So the teaching is coming into alignment with greater meaning. And greater meaning always speaks to our direct relationship with the love that we are, and how each one of us has a natural calling and purpose to be an extension of meaning, of love, of holiness. It's a part of who we are. And so we learn with Saturn and Pisces to do the work of creating a life that reflects that which is inherently meaningful and unifying, that which is transcendent of the world, but it's about letting structure serve meaning, not thinking that the purpose of meaning, the purpose of love is to serve the world. It's using time and space. It's using this illusion of the world experience to realize and bring out the love that we are, bring heaven here on earth. So it's about really learning to connect with our inspiration and doing the work to make it manifest over time. And so just to really close this piece, I can speak so much more about Saturn and Pisces. It's so rich, and I've spoken a lot about it. I'll speak more in the future. But just to summarize the essence, it's that duality between emptiness and wholeness. And anything in our life can be devoted and oriented towards meaning when we choose to make our life about meaningful. And it's an internal flip and doesn't require a circumstance or a condition to change. And that's one of the deeper teachings. And I would say the spiritual maturation that comes with Saturn. And that's what surrender is. It's a surrender to every experience is the next opportunity, is the next jumping place from which I can cultivate my alignment and practice Saturn. I can become stronger in my spiritual devotion here too. Doesn't matter where here is. So very powerful, wide open, deep healing journey, lots of spiritual maturation and growth. Jupiter in Aries, in its essence, is about the needed freedom to walk forward on one's own path and have one's own realizations. We have to have experience. I'm going to try this. I don't know where it's going, but I got to be honest with myself. I'm drawn here. This is where my path is taking me. And having the freedom and the courage to make these choices and to go into new places. And Jupiter in Aries really highlights this quality of, if you are willing to go it alone, meaning to go where you haven't been before, to do what you haven't done before, there is a world of realization and experience. And I think we've really seen this recently with its conjunction with Chiron. There can be a tenderness that we've really touched base with recently, seeing that there might be choices or decisions or vistas that we have to walk through that are uncomfortable. Maybe there's doubt, maybe there's uncertainty about other possibilities or other choices. but just embracing that we have to move forward and be open to the healing, be open to the learning. That's one of the deeper qualities of the times I feel right now. And so to speak to the semi-square relationship between Saturn and Jupiter, I actually want to read something that I just wrote. Some of you might know that I have a newsletter, and I often send out newsletters with these videos. Oftentimes I'll make a video and then I'll write an article, or write an article and then I'll make a video. In this case, I just want to read this little article that I wrote. This semi-square is inviting a stance, a posture of decisiveness. We have to walk our walk. We can't walk another's walk, and that's the essence of Jupiter and Aries. As obvious as this is, I think it can be incredibly startling and unsettling to realize that in essence, while there are to some extent role models and teachers, there are no role models or teachers or leaders out there that will encompass the perspective that is just right for us. No one can know our unique soul journey, and we will have to walk the paths and have the experiences that ultimately only we can really understand and relate to on our own journey. No one can in its entirety understand and meet and prescribe the path that is right for us. And this can feel scary because it can highlight a very profound sense of being alone, of having no reference point for what to do or how to navigate the complexity of life choices. And yet the freedom and beauty in this, if we can see it, is that part of the journey lies in our choice. Self-confidence has to be a part of this experience. And the only way to find self-confidence, I find, is in actually demonstrating that we do in fact believe it ourselves. How do we know if this choice is the right choice or if this path is the right path? There are other choices we could be making. There are other possibilities, other perspectives. There's always something other than what we're doing. At the core, it's what is our fundamental commitment? Whatever we're choosing, what are we going to do with the path that we're choosing? That's where our confidence lies. How are we going to move forward with the path that we're choosing? In this sense, that semi-square is a narrowing. It says this is not about being wide open to all kinds of possibilities right now, even though there's a lot of unknowns and a lot more to be realized. What is the essential commitment that we're certain about regardless? And how are we going to stick to that and commit to that so we can grow in time, no matter where the journey might take us? What's our intention? And where is that taking us, no matter where we go? I think that's what's of essence here. So I just made another video earlier today that I posted earlier today on just this piece that I've been musing about, which is I have these different teachers and people that inspire me in different areas of life. Some of them are science, some of them are spirituality, some of them, relate to different dimensions of spirituality. And of course, I'm naturally drawn to astrology, and I teach astrology, and I have my astrology teachers. And yet I very, very seldomly find any of these teachers resonating with all the things that I'm drawn to. In fact, oftentimes these teachers will judge or dismiss certain parts of it, right? How non-dual spirituality will dismiss astrology as like typology or a way of deflecting self-responsibility. And I spoke to how I really love that. And I love the fact that really it also highlights the fact for me that I can't look on the outside and find any one person whose path in life is going to fully encompass my own. And I think this Jupiter in Aries, semi-square to Saturn in Pisces, and we'll really see this as Jupiter moves into Taurus. Wow. Because that Taurus is really going to be narrowing and focusing in, live your realizations, like really own it. And it'll be a sextile to Saturn. It's even deeper levels of integration with even more levels of conscious awareness. So we're starting to get something right now. It's a stretch, but it says everyone's path is different. No one's going to validate yours. And I've shared this teaching, this story a lot, but it comes to me now. Role models is Saturn, teachers are Jupiter. And we could even like idealize or have starry eyes about a teacher or a role model. There's this one man that was doing this like really beautiful channeling work with a certain plant. And I asked him, what is your spiritual practice? And he just looked at me and he said, my spiritual practice is my spiritual practice. Your practice is your practice. And those were one of the best words anyone's ever spoken to me. It was so liberating. He didn't give into my outward seeking because I admired him. He didn't let me look outside of myself for a moment. He gave it all back to me. I can love the parts in him that reflect something in me that reflects my own blossoming path, but I don't have to accept all of his because his is not mine. It's so healing. It's so beautiful. Just having this perspective allows us to feel that we can embrace a certainty in life. We don't have to feel lost. We can find our commitment. We can allow ourselves to find our way. And we also don't need to force ourselves into something that isn't us. Okay. So once again, reminder that the Essentials course is still open for enrollment till April. You can jump in, and this is an amazing opportunity to study astrology from a spiritual perspective, loving community, weekly meetings, lots of video content. We also have a self-study option for those that don't want the live component, just want the content to study on your own. So you can check all of that in the description below. Thank you for watching.